The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Emma Carter stepped off the yellow school bus, her pink backpack almost as big as her small 7-year-old frame. Maplewood Elementary sat at the edge of town, a brick building that had seen better days, surrounded by overgrown hedges and a rusted playground that creaked with every gust of wind. Emma was quiet, the kind of child teachers often forgot was in the room. Her clothes were worn but clean, hand-me-downs from the church donation bin. Her mother, Sarah, worked double shifts at the diner on Route 9, barely making enough to keep their trailer heated through the harsh Montana winters. Inside classroom 2B, Mrs. Patricia Holloway stood like a statue of cold authority. 30 years of teaching had turned her heart to stone. She wore her gray hair in a tight bun, and her eyes held no warmth, only judgment. To her, children were ranked by their parents' bank accounts and zip codes. "Emma, sit in the back," Mrs. Holloway announced on the first day, not even looking up from her attendance sheet. Away from the other children. The girl obeyed without question, learning quickly that speaking up only made things worse. While other kids shared crayons and laughed during recess, Emma ate her free lunch alone at the corner table, watching the world through thick glasses held together with tape. But Emma had a secret friend. Every Saturday, her mom took her to Big Joe's Diner, a roadside stop where chrome motorcycles lined the parking lot like mechanical horses. The place smelled of coffee, bacon grease, and leather. This was where the Iron Brotherhood MC gathered, a chapter of riders known throughout the state. Among them was Marcus Bulldog Hayes, a man whose tattooed arms told stories of military service, loss, and redemption. His beard was gray, his eyes kind despite the scars. When Emma walked in, his weathered face would break into the only smile that seemed genuine in her small world. "Hey there, little bit," he would call out, sliding a chocolate milkshake across the counter. "How's my favorite scholar doing?" Emma would climb onto the stool beside him, finally feeling seen. Bulldog never asked about her clothes or where she lived. He asked about books she was reading, pictures she drew, dreams she carried. The other bikers, rough men with nicknames like Hammer, Wrench, and Reaper, treated her like a princess. They called her their club mascot, but it was deeper than that. These men, many of them fathers who had lost children to custody battles, overdoses, or distance, poured their broken hearts into protecting this one small soul who lit up when they remembered her name. On this particular Monday morning, Emma walked into class with a drawing she had made over the weekend. It showed motorcycles, a little girl, and the words "my friends" written in crayon at the top. She wanted to share it during show and tell. Mrs. Holloway snatched it from her hands before she reached her desk. "What is this trash?" The teacher's voice dripped with disgust. "Are these criminals? Is your mother letting you hang around gang members?" "They're not bad people," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're nice to me." "Nice?" Mrs. Holloway's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Children like you don't know the difference. This is exactly why you'll end up nowhere, just like your mother." The words hit Emma like fists. She felt her eyes burn, but she refused to cry in front of the class. 23 pairs of eyes stared at her, some with pity, most with the learned cruelty of children who mimic adults. The day dragged on like a nightmare. During lunch, Emma dropped her tray, spaghetti splattering across the cafeteria floor. Mrs. Holloway appeared instantly, her face twisted in anger. "Clumsy and stupid. Clean it up, now." Emma knelt on the dirty floor, wiping tomato sauce with paper towels while other kids stepped around her, some deliberately kicking sauce toward her as they passed. When she finally finished, her hands were stained red, and her spirit was shattered. The final bell rang, but freedom did not come. Mrs. Holloway stood blocking the classroom door, arms crossed. "You're staying after school, Emma. We need to discuss your behavior and those people you associate with." The teacher's smile was thin and venomous. "I've called social services. Someone needs to check on what kind of environment you're living in." Emma's heart dropped into her stomach. She knew what that meant. Other kids at the trailer park had been taken away by people in suits. Families ripped apart. She thought of her mother's tired face, how hard she worked, how she sang softly when she thought Emma was asleep. "Please," Emma begged, tears finally spilling over. I didn't do anything wrong. Mrs. Holloway ignored her, turning away and walking toward the stairs that led to the school's basement, a place Emma had only heard whispers about. Come with me. Now. The basement stairs descended into darkness, each step creaking under their weight. Emma's small hand gripped the cold metal railing, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The smell hit her first. Mildew, dust, and something else she couldn't name. Fear, maybe. Mrs. Holloway flicked a switch, and a single bare bulb illuminated a space filled with broken desks, old textbooks, and forgotten supplies. Cobwebs stretched across corners like gray curtains. The concrete walls seemed to close in, and the temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. You'll wait here while I make my calls, Mrs. Holloway said, her voice echoing off the walls. Maybe some time alone will teach you about consequences, about respect. But I need to call my mom, Emma protested, her voice shaking. She'll be worried when the bus comes without me. Your mother, the teacher spat the words like poison, should have worried about you a long time ago. Maybe if she spent less time serving coffee to thugs and more time being a proper parent, you wouldn't be such a problem child. The heavy door slammed shut. Emma heard the unmistakable sound of a lock clicking into place. She ran to the door, pulling the handle with all her strength, but it wouldn't budge. Mrs. Holloway, please, let me out. Silence answered her. Then footsteps climbing the stairs, fading away, leaving her alone in the cold darkness. Emma sank to the floor, pulling her knees to her chest. The single bulb flickered, threatening to leave her in complete blackness. She had never felt so small, so forgotten. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. She could hear the muffled sounds of the school above. Doors closing, voices fading, the janitor's cart rolling down distant hallways. Her glasses fogged with tears. She thought about her mother, probably just finishing the lunch shift, getting ready for the evening one. She wouldn't know Emma was missing until much later. The school bus driver would assume she had a ride. Nobody would look for her until it was too late. The temperature continued to drop. Emma's thin sweater provided no warmth against the basement chill. She wrapped her arms around herself, rocking back and forth, trying to remember the warmth of Big Joe's diner, the sound of Bulldog's laugh, the way the bikers made her feel protected. Above her, she heard the main doors of Maplewood Elementary lock for the night. The building settled into its evening silence. The realization hit her like ice water. Mrs. Holloway had left. The teacher had actually left her locked in the basement and gone home. Emma's small voice cracked as she called out one more time, knowing nobody would hear. Help me, please, somebody help me. But the only answer was the drip of water somewhere in the darkness and the scratching of something small moving behind the walls. 2 hours had passed in the cold basement. Emma's lips had turned pale, her fingers numb. She had stopped crying, simply staring at the flickering bulb above, wondering if anyone would ever find her. But outside, on Route 9, Sarah Carter was staring at the empty road where the school bus should have stopped. Her stomach twisted with that primal instinct every mother knows. Something was wrong. She tried calling the school. No answer. She tried Emma's teacher. Voicemail. Panic rising in her throat, Sarah did the only thing she could think of. She ran to Big Joe's diner. The moment she burst through the door, breathless and terrified, Bulldog knew. He was off his stool before she even spoke. Emma didn't come home. Nobody knows where she is. The school won't answer. The entire diner went silent. 12 bikers, men who had been laughing seconds before, transformed. Hammer put down his coffee. Wrench's jaw clenched. Reaper's eyes went dark with purpose. Bulldog grabbed his leather jacket, his voice steady but deadly serious. We're going to that school. Right now. He turned to the others. Make the calls. Everyone. I want every brother within 100 miles at Maplewood Elementary by sunrise. Sarah's eyes widened. What are you going to do? We're going to find your daughter, Bulldog said simply. And God help anyone who hurt her. Within 20 minutes, Bulldog and 3 others were at the school, pounding on the locked doors. A janitor, startled by the noise and the sight of 4 large bikers, opened the door a crack. We're looking for a little girl, Emma Carter. 7 years old. Pink backpack. She never made it home. The janitor shook his head. School's been closed for hours. Everyone's gone home. Then we search every room. Hammer growled, his massive frame filling the doorway. They swept through the building, calling Emma's name. The janitor followed nervously, keys jingling. They checked classrooms, bathrooms, the nurse's office. Nothing. Then Bulldog heard it. So faint he almost missed it. A small voice, weak and scared, coming from below. Down here. Help. The basement. Bulldog's blood ran cold. He practically ripped the door off its hinges when he found it locked. The janitor fumbled with keys, hands shaking. When the door finally opened, they found her. Emma, curled in a ball on the concrete floor, shivering violently, her lips blue from cold. Bulldog scooped her up like she weighed nothing, wrapping her in his leather jacket. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, and she buried her face in his beard. Mrs. Holloway locked me in. She whispered through chattering teeth. She said I was bad. She said nobody would care. Bulldog's jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. Over Emma's head, he looked at the other bikers. They nodded, understanding passing between them without words. If you're watching this and you believe every child deserves to be protected, hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next is something this town will never forget. Tomorrow morning, Maplewood Elementary was about to receive visitors. 200 of them, all wearing leather and riding thunder. Dawn broke over Maplewood with a sound the small town had never heard before. The rumble started as a distant thunder, growing louder with each passing second until the ground itself seemed to vibrate. 200 motorcycles rolled down Main Street in perfect formation, chrome gleaming in the early light, engines roaring like a mechanical army. The Iron Brotherhood had called every chapter within 3 states. They came from Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota. Bikers who had never met Emma but understood the code. You protect the innocent, always. No exceptions. They surrounded Maplewood Elementary like a leather and denim fortress. Motorcycles parked in every available space, on sidewalks, across the lawn, blocking every exit. Men and women, some with gray beards, others with young faces, all united in silent fury. Bulldog stood at the front entrance, Emma's pink backpack in his hand. Beside him stood Sarah, no longer the scared waitress from last night, but a mother with an army at her back. The first teacher to arrive stopped dead in her tracks, keys frozen halfway to the door. Then another. Then the principal, Mr. Henderson, his face going pale as he took in the scene before him. We need to talk, Bulldog said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of 200 witnesses behind him. About what happened to Emma Carter yesterday. Mr. Henderson's hands trembled as he unlocked the door. Inside the main office, he found Mrs. Holloway already there, apparently having arrived early. Her face went white when she saw the bikers filing in, filling the hallway, their boots echoing on the tile floor. This is outrageous, Mrs. Holloway stammered, trying to summon her classroom authority. You can't just storm into a school like this. I'll call the police. Already here, came a voice from behind. Sheriff Tom Bradley pushed through the crowd, but he wasn't there to arrest anyone. He was there because his own daughter went to this school, and what he heard last night made his blood boil. Mrs. Holloway, I need you to explain why a 7-year-old child was found locked in a basement at 8 p.m., hypothermic and terrified. I was teaching her discipline, the teacher said, her voice rising defensively. She was disruptive, disrespectful. Her mother lets her associate with criminals. Bulldog stepped forward, and despite being surrounded by law enforcement, Mrs. Holloway took a step back. The look in his eyes was not anger but something far more powerful. Absolute moral certainty. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan, he said quietly. I got a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. Hammer over there? He's a paramedic who saved 17 lives this year. Wrench runs a youth center that keeps kids off drugs. Reaper? He's a damn elementary school teacher in Billings. Mrs. Holloway's mouth opened and closed like a fish. We're not criminals, Bulldog continued. We're people who see a kid who needs protecting and we step up. You, on the other hand, locked a terrified child in a basement and went home to dinner. The school board convened an emergency meeting that same afternoon. The town hall couldn't contain everyone who showed up. Parents who had heard whispers about Mrs. Holloway's cruelty for years but stayed silent out of fear. Students who had been humiliated, isolated, broken down by her venom. They all came forward now, emboldened by the wall of leather-clad protectors standing at the back of the room. One by one they testified. A boy who had been locked in a closet for stuttering. A girl who was denied bathroom breaks as punishment. Parents who were told their children were worthless, destined for failure, not worth the effort. Mrs. Holloway sat rigid in her chair, her face a mask of defiance crumbling with each new testimony. Her lawyer tried to argue it was discipline, not abuse. But when the school janitor stepped forward with security footage showing Mrs. Holloway locking the basement door and leaving the building, there was nothing left to argue. Emma sat between her mother and Bulldog, no longer trembling. She watched as the woman who had made her feel small was now the one shrinking, exposed under the harsh lights of accountability. The board's decision was unanimous. Mrs. Holloway was terminated immediately, her teaching license revoked pending criminal investigation. Charges of child endangerment, unlawful imprisonment, and criminal negligence were filed by the district attorney. But the bikers weren't finished. They had seen the conditions at Maplewood Elementary. The broken playground equipment, the outdated books, the cafeteria serving food that barely qualified as nutrition, the classrooms with leaking ceilings and broken heaters. Bulldog stood before the school board one more time. We're organizing a fundraiser. Poker runs, charity rides, concerts. Every chapter from here to Seattle is in. We're going to rebuild this playground, update these classrooms, and create a scholarship fund for kids like Emma. The superintendent, overwhelmed, could only nod. Sarah Carter cried as she watched these rough men with tattooed knuckles and scarred faces pledge thousands of dollars and countless hours to transform her daughter's school. They had never asked for recognition. They simply saw a child in need and mobilized an army. Emma walked up to Bulldog after the meeting, tugging on his leather vest. He knelt down to her level. "Thank you for finding me," she said softly, then wrapped her small arms around his neck. The massive biker's eyes welled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Always little bit. Your family. And family protects family." By the end of the week, Mrs. Holloway had left town. Her career destroyed, facing potential jail time. A new teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, took over classroom 2B. Her first act was moving Emma's desk to the front row, right beside her own. "Emma," she said with a warm smile, "I hear you're quite the artist. Would you help me decorate our classroom?" For the first time in her school life, Emma felt like she belonged. 6 months later, Maplewood Elementary was unrecognizable. The playground gleamed with new equipment, bright colors replacing rust and broken chains. Solar panels lined the roof, funded by the bikers' tireless fundraising. The cafeteria served fresh meals, and every classroom had new books, computers, and heating that actually worked. Emma Carter stood on the stage of the renovated gymnasium, no longer the quiet girl in the back row. She wore a blue dress Sarah had bought with money from her new job as manager at Big Joe's Diner. The owner, impressed by her loyalty and the respect she commanded from the biker community, had promoted her with a raise that changed everything. Today was the dedication ceremony. The new community center attached to the school bore a bronze plaque, the Iron Brotherhood Youth Center, built by writers who believed every child deserves protection, education, and love. Emma stepped up to the microphone, her small voice now amplified across the crowd of hundreds. Parents, teachers, students, and dozens of bikers in their leather vests filled the space. 6 months ago, I felt invisible, she began, her hands gripping the podium. I thought nobody cared if I disappeared. But I learned something important. Family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most. The bikers in the audience stood a little taller. Bulldog taught me that strength isn't about being loud or mean. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. It's about standing up when it's easier to look away. She looked directly at Bulldog, who sat in the front row wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Because of him and all the Iron Brotherhood, kids like me know we matter. We have new books to read, warm classrooms to learn in, and teachers who actually see us. But most importantly, we learned that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have motorcycles. The gymnasium erupted in applause. Sarah stood beside Ms. Rodriguez, both women crying tears of joy. The superintendent shook hands with chapter presidents from 5 states, partnerships forming that would protect children across the region. After the ceremony, Emma ran outside where 200 motorcycles were lined up for a celebration ride through town. Bulldog lifted her onto his bike, placing a tiny custom helmet on her head that read little bit across the back. Ready for your first official ride, mascot? Emma's smile could have powered the sun. Ready. The engines roared to life, a sound that no longer meant danger but protection. As they rode through Maplewood, people lined the streets waving, children cheering. The town had learned what Emma knew all along. Never judge a book by its cover, and never underestimate the power of people who choose to care. Emma held tight to Bulldog, wind in her face, finally free. She was no longer the forgotten girl in the back row. She was loved, protected, and proof that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are exactly the ones we need. Thank you so much for watching Emma's story until the very end. If this touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Drop a comment below telling us what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that there are still good people in this world. We post new inspiring stories every week, and your support means everything. Until next time, remember, family is who shows up. Always.